So recently I haven't really had any things to talk about to myself, to others, um, at least at school. Man, this is really weird having to look at the webcam and talk. I'm not used to this. Like I was saying though, recently I haven't exactly had I haven't had much of those getting to know you kind of things in most of my classes at school. Uh, and maybe I am absolutely insane for wanting to talk to people about myself, or maybe it's just that I don't really talk that much. But either way, I decided to make a video about these this trilogy that I really like. And I haven't really seen a terrible amount of videos being made on it, so I decided I might as well talk about it. But that's not really the actual reason why I'm talking about these movies. I'm my good old friend Hector decided that I should make another video, and I was like, you know what, man, you're right. I've been feeling like making another video. And I was like, well, what do I make the video about, though? And he said, commentary. Now, me personally, I'm not really one to be that good at commentary kind of stuff. I can't sit down and just go like talk aimlessly about stuff. But I've seen some commentary-ish kind of videos, some videos of people just explaining stuff and going further into detail. And I was like, you know what? I mean, I could probably do that. I could give it a shot at least because I didn't really know what else to record at the moment. So if this doesn't end up being a good video, you can blame it on Hector. I don't know. But I've just decided that I want to talk about some of the best movies I've ever seen, in my opinion. And that would be the Bill and Ted trilogies. You got Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and Bill and Ted Face the Music. And so pretty much this video will just be me explaining why I think the Bill and Ted trilogy are the most excellent movies out there. Now, of course, this will be very, very biased towards my opinion. And so, I guess that just a warning there. This is all my opinion. And if no one agrees with me, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't really mind. I guess just don't lose your mind in the comments. I don't know. I don't know if I'd even respond. But yeah, just a heads up before I fully get started here. So let's go ahead and I'll just start with the first one up, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Excellent!
Alright, so Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, first movie up. I need to try not to talk in the same tone throughout the video. That might make people fall asleep. But anyways, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure came out in 1989, or that's when it was released in theaters, was 1989. Originally, I think work started being put into it, like writing-wise, in 1985? I don't know for sure. I don't want this whole video to be me, like, nerding out completely over this whole franchise, because that would just kind of go on really, really long. I feel like then it's already going to be. So I think it was around there, because I know originally Bill and Ted were going to have a time-traveling van, but Back to the Future came out, and that was kind of they thought that'd be kind of taking the idea a little too close there with Back to the Future. And so they've settled with the phone booth, and that's what they used to go back in time. And so if you didn't know, Bill and Ted, it is a kind of time-traveling movie. It's about time travel. It's a sci-fi comedy. And so I'm pretty sure it came out in they finished recording it and all that in 1987, and then by 1989, because something happened and it got put aside, and then a company came and got it or something like that. I don't know the full story. And 1989 was when it was released in theaters. And and I think in the movie it takes place in 1988, I believe. So I'm hoping I'm not confusing anyone there. But yeah, released in 1989, takes place in 1988. So pretty much, I guess I'll just start with the characters. So you got Bill and Ted; those are the main duo. Bill is played by Alex Winter, who, to me, I wouldn't say is really very heard of, as like in general. But he's been in The Lost Boys. He plays a vampire. I saw a movie he I think co-directed. I don't know if he co-writed, if that's a word. I don't know if he did that as well, but he was also in the movie, and it was Freaked. That's a pretty good, somewhat funny movie, I'd say. I gave that a watch. Then Ted is played by my personal favorite actor, Keanu Reeves. He's been known as Neo in The Matrix. I'd say most people my age probably know him as John Wick, of course. Just most people in general, because that's just the most kind of recent thing he's been in. And then another important character, that's kind of the whole reason this whole story happens, is Rufus, who is played by a famous comedian named George Carlin. I don't know much about George Carlin. I haven't really seen any stuff he's been in. I just know he's a comedian. But, so he's a pretty important character as well to kind of start and get the story going. And so that's pretty much most of, at least the important characters, I'd say. There are other characters, but I guess just a little background on who plays them. I guess before I just tell the whole story, the whole entire movie, there's some stuff I've listed here that I'm just going to talk about. That's why if I keep looking back and forth, I set up a Google Doc because I don't want to rant on forever, but I also don't want to read off a script fully and sound like a robot, because that's just not really fun. Something I have on here is the soundtrack. Now, me personally, I, for some reason, really like movie, or mostly movie, soundtracks. That could be the songs in it, that could be, by songs, I mean, actual, by bands or something like that, artists that make songs for the movie, or they just get the song in the movie. And then even, the orchestra and, ensemble stuff, I feel like even then, with some movies, I think it just sounds good, and it just makes the movie so much better if it has a good soundtrack. And so, the main soundtrack was by David Newman. He, pretty sure he wrote and composed all of the music for this one and for the next one, Bogus Journey. And just back-to-back soundtracks are awesome. I love them. They have good, actual, I don't know why I'm saying actual songs. They're both songs, pretty much. But they have just good bands, good songs in, I'd say, both movies. Third one, they're good. I haven't really listened to them that much compared to the first two. But yeah, the music is amazing. I like how it kind of has, it almost has hints of, an 80s kind of sound to it, but also with, the time zones that they time travel to, which I think is pretty neat. Oh, next up, I have the kind of 80s feel of the movie. I don't want to sound like a pick-me or that I'm, unique or anything like that. I'm really not. But I like a lot of 80s kind of, music, movies, like Ghostbusters, Goonies, Back to the Future, movies like that. I kind of grew up watching them mostly. Bill and Ted is probably the latest 80s movie I've seen, and I think the first time I saw it I was in 8th grade. But I just it has the good old kind of old school feel to it that just makes it just feels like a good movie. No, it's not all CGI. You know, they got practical effects. They got the like hand-drawn effects or something like that, whatever it is, where it's like electricity stuff, which is just awesome. And yeah, I just like it because of that. The casting for the historical figures, I'd say it was really good. I feel like every person they casted for each historical figure is like as close to accurate as you're gonna get. And like another thing that's cool is that they literally like the figures will like speak. I'm pretty sure they do at least. They don't speak English. They speak the language that that historical figure actually spoke. You know, it's not like a kind of movie thing where it's like, oh, magically everyone can speak English, you know, so you can understand everyone. So I just think that's cool. I think that's good detail. That just, again, adds some bonus points to why I like the movie. The kind of time travel aspect, I think, is also pretty cool. I'd say it's pretty creative in a way, somewhat. I know some people are like, oh, well, it's like the Doctor Who TARDIS. I've personally never watched Doctor Who, like anything about it. I just know that it's similar to a phone booth, or it is a phone booth. I don't really know for sure. It's cool because the way it works is you have this phone book that has all the time periods and stuff, and then you dial the number, and that once you dial it will take you to what year you dialed to and all that, which I think is cool. I think that's a pretty cool aspect or way of using time travel. Only other example I can think of for time travel is like Back to the Future with the DeLorean. Like that's pretty iconic, I'd say, and so I feel like Bill and Ted's they did good from steering away to being like Back to the Future, I'd say. I'm sorry again if this video is not entertaining, and I keep saying a lot, and so I'm gonna have to try and see if I can cut that out. So there's probably gonna be random cuts throughout the video when I'm talking. That's just gonna be me trying to probably clear out anything I think is like wrong or just sounds stupid or annoying, and it just is gonna drag the video on. So that's mostly my intro. Warning, I guess, spoilers ahead. If you are watching this video any further, you're gonna probably get the movie spoiled for you. I'm really making this video for people who like the Bill and Ted trilogy, or like fans of it, and then people who just are like too lazy to watch the movie. That's kind of just, I'm pretty much just gonna talk about the movie and just explain all of them. So just a warning there. There's gonna be spoilers, so I don't know if there's going to be a part throughout the video in the future where there won't be spoilers, but I'm sure if there will be, then I'll just edit that, but you're going to probably be missing a decent amount of the video. But without further ado, here is the Excellent Adventure story. So it starts in the future, actually. There's like this weird like device, like gold cylinder looking thingy, like kind of like descending from some random room, and again, one of the like coolest openings ever. Just they have an awesome song in the soundtrack. It's like I Can't Break Away by Big Pig or something like that, but it is awesome. It's like I don't know why I like it so much. I just think it's really cool. But so the device kind of drops down finally after like descending from the air, and then we meet Rufus, and this is in
San Dimas, California, 2688.
The future, of course, in San Dimas. And so he pretty much kind of introduces the audience and talks about how perfect the world is in the future. You know, everything's clean, even the dirt's clean. It's pretty much perfect, you know. It's just nothing is wrong. And he goes on to explain that the reason it's perfect is because of Bill and Ted. And I'll kind of further elaborate on that in like towards the end of explaining the movie. So it's back in the present, back in 1988, and we meet Bill and Ted. They're in Bill's garage. They want to start a band, the Wild Stallions, but they aren't exactly the best at playing instruments. So they want to be in a band, but they're not exactly band worthy. But they're practicing in the morning, and then they realize they're almost late to school, so they head there. And then I guess something, in my opinion, that I actually find awesome about the characters is that occasionally they do a like air guitar, and I don't know why I find that so I don't really say super cool, but I just find it kind of unique in a way, I guess, because you don't really see characters doing stuff like that. And it's probably also just because the air guitar, like all the effects are by one of like the coolest guitarists ever, Steve Vai. That dude's crazy on guitar. So I don't know if that's the reason why I like the whole air guitar thing they do, but yeah, that's something they do. Just a little side note there, I guess. I don't know. So they go to school, and they're in their history class, and they get questions wrong from their teacher, who asks the questions.
He's dead?
So, Bill, what you're telling me, essentially, is that Napoleon was a short, dead dude.
And he keeps them after class and tells them that they're going to fail their final report because they've already failed. Well, he doesn't tell them they're going to fail it, but he tells them that they failed every section in the class, in their history class. And if they don't get an A on their final report, they'll flunk out of school. And so that is just not really good in general. So they look at their project, and it is about pretty much how historical figures would see San Dimas, which is where the story takes place, in San Dimas, California. It's how historical figures would see or think of San Dimas in 1988.
Would view the world as San Dimas, 1988. We are in danger of flunking most heinously tomorrow, Ted.
They're kind of off the bat knowing they're screwed. So they end up they stop by Ted's house, because he has to drop his books off or something like that. And that's when we meet his dad, Captain Logan, who works at the police department or something. He gets kind of mad at Ted because already dude's lost his keys, so he can't find him, and he gets mad at Ted because he gets a call from his school that he's failing, and if he ends up dropping out of school, Ted's dad pretty much threatens him to sign him up for like military school or something like that, from this guy named Colonel Oates in Alaska. And so that just doesn't even sound really fun, at least to me. So Ted is pretty bummed out about that, so he gets back, heads to Bill's car, or it's not really Bill's, it's his stepmom's, and they head over to Bill's house, and Ted pretty much tells Bill that if they fail, Ted's gonna have to move away, and there won't be any more wild stallions. There won't be no more band or anything. So that kind of helps somewhat determine them to actually start studying and working on the report. So they kind of chill. They try studying and looking for historical figures, and Bill's dad just gives them some money to just go to like a gas station and like just get a snack or something. So they head to a Circle K, and they're trying to ask people questions and getting answers.
Excuse me, when did the Mongols rule China?
I don't know, I just work here.
They're just kind of thinking how they're pretty much screwed. And as they're getting ready to leave, a little small storm kind of starts happening, and then the phone booth falls from the sky, and Rufus is inside of it.
Greetings, my excellent friend.
Do you know when the Mongols ruled China?
And because it turns out at the beginning of the movie, the kind of like gold cylinder looking thing was the phone booth, and these wise people from the future that are kind of somewhat in charge there help make the cylinder shape into the phone booth so Rufus can go back in time. And so Rufus goes back in time. He lands at the Circle K, tells Bill and Ted that he's there to help them with their history report, and they're kind of sketched out because dude just fell from the sky pretty much. That'd be kind of odd to see. And so they're like, how are you gonna help us, man? And another phone booth falls from the sky, but this time Bill and Ted are inside of it.
Oh, I hate that part. Bill, what? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
And it turns out it's them from the future, which that's kind of a cool scene. You know, it shows them side by side, talking to each other. And so they're kind of sketched out, the current Bill and Ted's, because they're like, what the heck, bro, it's us. And eventually the other versions of them from the future convince them that it's really them.
What number are we thinking of? 69, dudes!
And to trust Rufus to go on the trip through time to pass their history report. They decide to go through with it. They get into the phone booth with Rufus, and Rufus takes them back in time. They go back sometime to Austria, and they see Napoleon, and they get back in the phone booth and they leave. And while they're leaving, though, Napoleon gets like shot at with a cannon, and he goes flying towards the phone booth, and he like follows it, and then he's going through the path the phone booth takes, which is, man, I'm realizing that I am like leaving out details until I'm getting to the part after I should have explained it. This is gonna be rough. But so Napoleon is going through the circuits of time, and that pretty much is where the phone booth goes when it's time traveling. That's like the way that's like the journey it takes to get there. The circuits of time are just these big old circuits that the phone booth goes through, and that's how the time travel works. They just go through the circuits until they get to that time, and then the phone booth, like, they shoot out from the circuits from the sky, pretty much. So Napoleon's going through the circuits with them, and he ends up following out the same way as the phone booth. And so Bill and Ted are back at Ted's house, and Rufus is telling him, you know, you can use this phone booth, do whatever you want with it, just make sure you pass your report. And so Rufus leaves, and he leaves the phone booth with him, and then Napoleon falls out of a tree, and Bill and Ted's bring him into Ted's house, because, you know, you don't want to leave Napoleon, you know, famous French guy, out and about in the present day. So they take him in. They have Ted's little brother Deacon kind of babysit Napoleon, while Bill and Ted get the idea to go back in time and use the phone booth to get the historical figures and bring them to their report. So they do that. Ted's dad gets mad at him again and about not working on his report and hanging out with Bill and wanting to start a band. That'll never work, or something like that. And so Bill uses the phone booth to call Ted's dad and distract him, and then Ted uses that time to leave.
Deputy Van Halen?
And so they take the phone booth. They decide the first place they're going to go is sometime in like the Wild West, the like Wild West expedition or something. I can't really remember what that's called, like Manifest Destiny or something like that. So they go back in time to the Wild West. It's really cool. I think all the sets are really cool when they like go back in time. Like each time period looks, I mean, accurate. I wasn't there, so I can't really say if it's accurate or not. But I mean, it looks like what you'd think it looked like. They go into a bar. They're offered some drinks, and then they're looking around kind of on which historical figure to take, or just a historical person, and that is when Billy the Kid, little cowboy dude, comes into the bar and offers not really a job, but kind of a deal. And so Bill and Ted accept the deal. Pretty much it's just they're gonna just play cards, and whatever Bill and Ted get, Billy the Kid gets in return, or he just gets it. So they're playing kind of like some kind of card dealing game. I don't really know any kind of stuff like that, dealing casino stuff. I don't really know. And Bill and Ted kind of, I guess, weird out the other Wild West dudes there, and they kind of, that just leads them to think that Billy the Kid is cheating. And Billy the Kid just like flips out, he throws the table, and then a whole freaking saloon fight starts. And Bill and Ted and Billy the Kid get almost get confronted, I guess. I don't know about confronted. They almost get beat up by some guys, but they distract them and run away. And they get in the phone booth, and they just get out of there. They just leave before they get shot up. But they leave, and they go to, I think it's like ancient Greece or something like that. And they meet Socrates. That's a pretty funny moment, I guess. They philosophize with him, or at least try to. And so they leave with him. They don't have a fight or anything, which is good, I guess. And so they're just kind of starting to collect the historical figures for the report, of course. And then they go to medieval England. And at this point, I think they just needed one more historical figure, which I thought was kind of crazy, that they just needed 3. But they're looking around, and then here I go again, not mentioning details in the past. So let's go back quickly to when future Bill and Ted arrive in the second phone booth. When they're leaving, Ted tells present Ted to give more love to the princesses, which they end up seeing in medieval England. He sees the princesses that he was telling himself about from the future. And also, future Ted tells present Ted to wind his watch, but he ends up forgetting to do that, and that'll go into effect later in the movie. But they see the princesses that Ted was telling himself about, and Ted is in love, pretty much. So they're like, well, shoot, man, how are we supposed to get in there? So they sneak into the castle, they disguise as knights, and they kind of mess around a little bit. They like try sword fighting, and Ted rolls down a flight of stairs, and some of the guardsmen there literally just stab him. So Ted is pretty much dead. And Bill's upset. He charges at one of the guys that runs in, one of the guardsmen dudes, and they get into a little fight, and then the guardsman guy, or whatever he is, gets knocked out, and it turns out Ted's actually alive. He fell out of his armor when he hit the ground. And I feel like that's something I like about these movies as well, is that they're like so like goofy that that helps to make them, like, it makes it better, to me at least, is that it's just like that kind of like goofy, like, you don't really know how that works, but it just does, and you don't care that it doesn't. But they do that, they meet the princesses, and then they run into the king and the 2 ugly dudes that the princesses are about to be forced to marry.
How's it going, royal ugly dudes?
And so the king threatens to put them in the Iron Maiden, and they of course they're thinking of the band.
Put them in the Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden? Excellent!
So that's a bit funny, I'd say. And then he decides to just execute them just off the bat. No more torture, just straight up off with their heads. They're about to get their heads chopped off. Horse carriage shows up with the phone booth, and Socrates and Billy the Kid aren't there. They're not at the phone booth. So Bill and Ted are like kind of tied to a little wood thing or whatever, and they're about to get their heads cut off. And then eventually the rope gets cut off, and it turns out that Billy the Kid and Socrates were disguised as the executioners, which is kind of they're pretty smart for that, I'm not gonna lie. So they do that. King's mad. They get on the horse carriage and ride away while he sends guards after them. They take the phone booth, get out of there last second, but while they were getting out, a guard with like a flail thingy hit the antenna of the phone booth, so that kind of messed it up. So they're going through time, and they end up landing in the future where Rufus was at the beginning. They end up there, and they meet the like three main like wise people that are kind of in charge there, and they end up having all these people show up, and then they realize that like they're almost like worshipped there, and that's where they say the kind of popular phrase, "Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes." That's where that phrase comes from. I don't know if anyone's even heard of that if you haven't seen the movie, but it comes from there. They kind of stand around and look at all the people from the future, and they're like, well, we got to go, it's a history report. So they leave, and they meet Sigmund Freud. They get him. Then they take Beethoven, and then Joan of Arc, and then it gets kind of like to a cool little montage where they get the last couple historical figures, and it's just them getting like Genghis Khan and Abraham Lincoln added. And so they get their historical figures, and they're going through the circuits of time, and they're just wondering why the phone booth is kind of acting strange when they're traveling around. And it turns out that they find out the antenna's broken, and all the while they're doing that, Napoleon is out and about with Ted's little brother Deacon. They go to like a little Chuck E. Cheese looking place and have ice cream, and then they try going bowling, and Napoleon cannot really bowl, so he kind of gets mad there, and while he's bowling he cheats by changing the score, and then Deacon and some of his friends decide to just leave Napoleon there. So they leave, and Napoleon like turns around and they're gone, and then he tries to leave, but the like guy in charge of the bowling place just like kicks him out, and so now Napoleon's just all by himself in the middle of nowhere for him pretty much. And so all while that's happening, Bill and Ted and all the historical figures are in like sometime in the BCs, like the caveman days pretty much. And so they use this kind of like gum kind of stuff that Ted packed in his backpack that he brought with him from the start, and they use that to repair the antennas to the phone booth, that and like the cans that it came in, and it works. And so they get back to the they type the numbers in to go back to the present, and then that's where they end up going back to where they were at the Circle K towards the beginning. So it kind of loops back, and they realize, they're like, oh snap, that's us, and now we're us from the future. And so they do the whole chat where they had before with their future selves, and then Rufus asks if everything's all right, and then they ask why they're in for them the past when they should be in the present, and Rufus explains to him why they just gotta dial one number higher, and Rufus is asking if they're sure they're gonna have time and all that, and they're like, yeah dude, we got like 10 hours still. And it turns out they only have 2 hours because Ted forgot to wind his watch from the beginning. So he again reminds himself to wind his watch, and then they leave. They head back to the present, and they go to a mall with all their historical figures they got, and they get them some slushies and stuff, and then they're like, alright, we just gotta go look for Napoleon now, and we can go do our report. And so they find Ted's brother Deacon, and they leave the historical figures at the mall by themselves, and they find Deacon, and they're like, dude, you ditched Napoleon? And Deacon was just saying how Napoleon just sucked, and they left him. So now they gotta think where Napoleon would be, and they end up finding him at a water park called Waterloo. and Napoleon goes there. He has a freaking blast in the water park, and eventually Bill and Ted get Napoleon, and they get ready to head back to the mall. And while they're on their way, all the historical figures decide to split up and kind of start havoc on the mall. Pretty much Genghis Khan goes into like a sporting goods store and finds a baseball bat, which he ends up, I think, probably liking better than his big old club that he has. And so he just starts trashing the place. And so one of the security guards there calls in for some backup. After that, Abraham Lincoln is at some kind of like little old American like photo shoot thing or whatever. And for some reason, the guy thinks that he has a Abraham Lincoln hat and a fake Abraham Lincoln beard. So he tries taking it from Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln just shoves him and starts to run. And then Beethoven is at like a music store, and he's starting to freaking shred on the piano. And then Joan of Arc ended up taking over like a aerobics exercise program thing that was going on at the mall. And so, you know, they're making all these people mad pretty much and getting security called on them. And eventually they all get taken in to prison. And so Bill and Ted find out about that. And they head back they don't head back, they head to the prison where Ted's dad works. And they go in, and Ted's dad is like, Ted, get out of here, man. I've already signed you up for military school. You're going like tonight or today or something like that. And he doesn't even hear Ted out, like, oh, those are my historical figures, man. So Ted leaves, tells Bill what's going on, and they're like, well, how are we supposed to get in? And Ted thinks and remembers that his dad's keys were stolen. And then they like get like one of the smartest ideas ever. They're like, well, wait, we can go back in time to before the keys were stolen, and then leave the keys in a spot for us that we can take when it gets to that point in the future. I know that sounds kind of confusing at first, but it's it makes sense pretty much. It's like this. So they go. They don't show them going back in time because it's like another version of them from the future. They leave the keys for them. They get the keys. They go in. They set up a distraction for Ted's dad, and they kind of sneak around the jail or the like police area. I don't know. I don't know why my mind just went blank on the word. But they find the historical figures. They break them out of prison. They jump through a little window, or like they like help all the historical figures out, and then Ted's dad finds them, and they get away before he can do anything. They like drop a freaking trash can on his head, and so they get out. They head to school, and they're cutting down on their time. They're like pretty much out of time, yeah, for their report. So their history teacher is getting ready to finish all the other reports, and like send everyone home early. And luckily, Bill and Ted make it in time, and they start their report, and it ends up being amazing. They they introduce and like show off all like the historical figures and like, facts about them. They actually pronounce their names right, because instead of Socrates, they called him Socrates. Sigmund Freud was Sigmund Freud. Beethoven was like Beethoven or something. And so they pronounce their names right, of course, because they end up learning about the historical figures. They actually end up learning, and they like show off all their skills and stuff and what they're known for. And it ends up being probably like the best report there, or it is the best report there. So they end up getting an A. They go back in time and send all their historical figures back to where they originally were. And then they're in Bill's garage again, I believe. Yeah, they're in Bill's garage again. by the end of the movie, and they're almost like bummed out in a way, or at least Ted is. And so, they got an A on their report. They met a whole bunch of historical leaders and figures and stuff like that, but they still can't play instruments. And suddenly, Rufus arrives with the princesses from medieval England that they couldn't find after doing their report. And it was because Rufus got them before they married the ugly dudes. And so they show up. They greet themselves and kiss and all that. And Rufus hands them 2 guitars. And then he asks if they can sign an album he has. Like a album cover thingy. And they're like, well, why? And this goes back to the beginning where they're like pretty much the 2 great people, and the reason why the world is like perfect. It's because their band Wild Stallions ends up making music that like realigns all the planets pretty much, and just creates like harmony and stuff. And that's why in the future they were almost being worshipped, was because of that, because they're famous, they're like heroes pretty much. And so they sign it. Turns out the princesses are also in the band, and then they have a little somewhat jam out session with Rufus, and then that's when Excellent Adventure ends. Now, I know that was an absolutely dreadful explanation, but I'm hoping it'll be better if once I go in and edit it. I'm hoping. I need like a drink of water or something. I've been talking way too much. Wow, that's rough. But yeah, so that is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the first out of the 3 films. First one I saw. I'd say for me, I know for a lot of people it's their favorite out of the 3. For me, I'd say it's like a really, really close tie between Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. And they're just both like really good to me, at least. So, second movie, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Something that some people might say is bad about it, but to me I'd say it's really good about it, is that it is completely different from Excellent Adventure. Because originally I've heard that the second one was just going to be like, oh, well, now Bill and Ted need to pass their English class, and they get famous like book characters or something like that. And so luckily they didn't do that, because that probably would have been a little too similar to the first one and not as fun. The second one is absolutely like just insane with how different it is. They took risks, and I mean, to me, I think it was worth it, the risks they took in Bogus Journey, because it's just so different that it is like, I can't even find the words to explain it. It's like it's just so different that it's like, it's good because of that. Probably just because of just how unique it is. And again, soundtrack, music, love it. I know they have some Faith No More. They even have the guitarist in like the beginning of the movie. I hate that I can't remember his name. I'm sure I can just edit it in, because I don't know why I just forgot it entirely. But Faith No More, you got some Slaughter. What else is there? Winger, they have a song in there. So for people out there that like that kind of music, I'd say it's pretty good. I like it. And like the just original soundtrack, again by David Newman. I feel like that it's almost like even better than Excellent Adventure. It's, I don't know, like they're both tied for me on which one is like good. I just think for me, Bogus Journey is like slightly a tiny bit higher, like soundtrack wise. I don't know why. They're both really good soundtracks. Let's see here. Bill and Ted still feel like Bill and Ted, In Bogus Journey, they've grown up a little bit. It's like a couple years later. They're not in high school anymore. They're living on their own, but they still feel like Bill and Ted. You know, they don't feel like completely different characters. It's like it's still the same people, which is nice. So that's pretty much mostly what this is, what Bogus Journey is. So I think something I will probably just mention at the start. I don't know. I don't know if they have different actresses for the princesses, because they're in the second one. I know they have different actresses for the third one, Face of Music. I don't know if they're the same in Bogus Journey and Excellent Adventure. I think they're different. But other than that, like every other character that was in the first one is the same person. Bill's stepmom is still there, although now she is Ted's stepmom, because she got with Ted's dad. So that's interesting. I guess keep note of that for the third one. I feel like with this movie, I really like it. I've heard that there were like a decent amount of like deleted scenes though that like didn't get put into the final cut of the movie, either because like the test audiences thought it was like could have been too scary for kids, I guess, or it could have been like they just didn't have the time to put that stuff in. And so to me, the end is a tiny bit anticlimactic, like by a hair. You'll see why when I get to explaining it. But other than that, I think this movie is really good for a sequel. I love how completely different it is, and it just keeps elements of Bill and Ted and makes it work.
Excellent!
So at the start of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, it again starts in the future in 2691. Oh, I forgot to mention that this movie came out in 1991. There you go, 1991. So it starts in the future, and already off the bat, we're introduced to the main antagonist, Nomolos, which is one of the writers' names backwards. It's Ed Solomon. It's like that backwards. Nomolos is the bad guy. Yeah, he doesn't like Bill and Ted. He doesn't like the society, the pretty much perfect society that the world is in. He doesn't like that it's in the hands of two buffoons or whatever. So he plans to find a way to change that, to go change the way so he's the ruler of the world and society and not Bill and Ted. And so it cuts to the Bill and Ted University. They got a dang school. So it cuts to that university, and there's a class, and they have some of the goofiest future outfits you'll ever see. I mean, they're kind of, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. They're odd. But we're at the class, and a phone booth lands, and something I think is cool is it's not the same phone booth from the first one. It is almost like an advanced version of the phone booth. It's got like gadgets and stuff at the top. It's different. It's not the same, of course. It's like with Back to the Future, where in Back to the Future Part 2, it has that like weird juicer thing or whatever that helps give it power. And it can fly, of course. But so phone booth lands, and Rufus comes out, and he's the teacher, and he brings in some historical figures, and James Martin. That's the name of the guitarist from Faith No More, James Martin. So he brings them all in, almost like for like a show and tell kind of thing, just like what they did and all that. And they got all their future tech in the classroom and all that, like translators and stuff. And suddenly the doors like burst open, and in comes all these people with these weird like gun thingies. And then in comes Nomolos, and he explains to Rufus that he is, he's been hiding because Rufus thought he died, and it turns out Nomolos is his old PE teacher or something. And so Nomolos explains that he was hiding until he waited for the right moment to choose to do his plan and change the whole future to be about him. And Rufus is like, time has told, this is like, we're still in the world we are today, what are you talking about? And then Nomolos brings out his 2 secret weapons, which they take their hoods off, and it's Bill and Ted. Yeah, Bill and Ted are his secret weapons. And then they reveal that they're actually robots that Nomolos made. So he programmed Bill and Ted, evil robots. And his main plan is to have them go back in time before a worldwide broadcast is recorded, and Bill and Ted send out pretty much a whole message to the world. And so his plan is to send them back in time, and they're going to end up interfering with Bill and Ted and the whole broadcast thing. So he sends them off. Rufus gets a futuristic guitar looking thing. He throws it in the top of the phone booth, and he grabs onto the cord and follows the phone booth when it time travels. And so he's in the circus of time now. And then it reintroduces us to Bill and Ted, them and the medieval princesses. I believe their names are Joanna and Elizabeth. They're at this audition for the Battle of the Bands in San Dimas. And the winner gets a whole lot of money and stuff like that, and so that's why they're doing it, and they're still pretty bad, at least Bill and Ted are. They're still not the greatest artists in the world, I guess. And so the person there, for the auditions, is kind of just like, well, what are you guys doing? I thought you said you guys were supposed to be the greatest in the world or something. They're like, well, we don't really know about it either. And so she's nice. I am annoyed that I can't remember her name, but she lets them stay, and so they're in the Battle of the Bands, and she just tells them, just practice. You guys got to get better if you want to be in here, And so that's what the whole broadcast is going to be for. It's going to be for the Battle of the Bands. And so they leave the auditorium and then head to their home, which is this apartment they live at. And they're having a little birthday celebration for the princesses. I think it's their 521st birthday or something like that. So they're probably 21 or something in the movie. I have no idea. But because they're from medieval England, of course, so however many years ago they found them. And so they're having the party, Ted's dad is there, and he introduces Ted to Colonel Oates, which from Excellent Adventure, he was the one with the Alaska military school. And so he kind of freaks Ted out because he's kind of weird. And then, he's like, oh, well, we can have all 4 of you guys, Bill, Ted, and the princesses, we can have all 4 of you come to this military place or whatever. And so they just kind of awkwardly laugh him off, and he walks away. And then Missy shows up and kisses Ted's dad in front of Bill's dad. It's kind of toxic if you ask me. It's dang. But so it's after the party, and Bill and Ted are talking with Joanna and Elizabeth, and they decide to propose to them, and they say yes. And so they have a little wholesome moment there. And then while that's happening, the evil Bill and Ted robots are falling from the phone booth. They fall back at, I believe the same Circle K from Excellent Adventure. And so they land. They get a little call from Nomolos, a video call thing, because Nomolos has like a eyeball looking setup thing in the schoolroom, and so he asks, "Is Rufus with you guys?" And so they check the phone booth. They look around. They don't see him, and Nomolos is just like, "Well, he's stuck in the circuits of time forever." So that's pretty much the last we hear of Rufus, unfortunately. But they finish the call. They get started with the plan. So the princesses leave, and Bill and Ted head back to their apartments. They're like, maybe once we get married, the princesses will move in with us or something like that. And so they get into their apartment, and the phone's ringing, and they answer it, and it's the princesses. And they're like, well, dang, that was fast. You guys just left. And they're like, well, we're not gonna join you in the Battle of the Bands, and we're breaking up with you, pretty much. They just kind of tell them their relationship is over, and Bill and Ted are just they just can't believe it. They're just in shock. And then we cut back to the evil Bill and Ted, and it turns out they were calling them from the phone booth and using their voices, they were imitating the princesses to make them think that it was them.
I totally fooled those other Russes.
Yeah, they're completely brilliant. Not.
So they do that. They trick Bill and Ted, the real ones, and then they decide to head to their apartment. And so Bill and Ted are in their apartment, sitting on the couch, just, bummed out. I can't really blame them, because the princesses just left them. And they're like, well, dude, what could we have done, to, maybe if we proposed earlier, but how could they when they don't really make a lot of money. And so they get the knock on the door, and Bill answers it, and he's like, well, it's us again from the future or something. And they're like, how's it going? He's like, bad. And the evil robots are like, yeah, we're here to help you guys on this whole problem you guys got going on here. So they talk a little bit. Ted tries to test them to see if the robots are really them by holding a number behind his back, and the robot gets it right. And so the evil Bill and Ted drive to the desert, and they take Bill and Ted out of the van, and they're like, well, where are Joanna and Elizabeth? Because they told them they would be there to help them out. And evil Bill and Ted reveal that they're there to kill them, and regular Bill and Ted don't believe it. So Bill goes to punch evil Bill and hurts his hand because he's made out of metal. And that's when they also reveal that they're evil robots. And so they take Bill and Ted to the top of this cliff, or this mountain thing that was in a Star Trek episode that they showed on the TV in the apartment as a little Easter egg. And so they do that, and they, Bill and Ted try to tell them, even though you guys are doing this, we love you and all that. And, evil Bill and Ted just don't even care. They just throw them off the cliff and they die. And Bill and Ted are dead. They fell to their death. Evil Bill and Ted walk away, find a Porsche and steal it. Yeah, so Bill and Ted, they die, but they wake up. And when they get up, they're in the afterlife. And so they're like, well, what just happened? Bill tells them that they're dead, and they look at their dead bodies, and then they turn back, and that is when the Grim Reaper appears.
Who's that?
And yeah, they have the Grim Reaper, and he's played by William Sadler. But he's just pretty much looming over them, and of course Bill and Ted are just chill freaking guys. They're just like, well, how's it hanging, Death? He just kind of tells them that they're gonna follow him or something like that, and they're like, well, dude, we gotta save the babes. Is there any way back? And he says, you can Grim Reaper says you can challenge them to a contest, and if they lose, then they'll stay in the afterlife forever. And so they're like, well, what if we win? And the Grim Reaper tells them that no one's ever won. And so that kind of creeps them out, because they're like, well, dude, we're screwed. So they decide to buy some time by losing Death, and they decide to Melvin him, which is like another word for a wedgie, pretty much.
Melvin.
So yeah, they decide to, Melvin him. So they do that. Then they run off while he is like in pain and agony, and they decide to head to the police station where Ted's dad works to try and send a message, pretty much. And so they go into the police station, and Ted decides to possess his dad while he's in the middle of like a work meeting.
Whoa. Okay, dudes.
And there's this whole thing where he possesses him, and then tries to explain to all the like police officers there that Bill and Ted have died and they need help to save the princesses. But of course the police officers are just thinking he's insane.
You totally did it, dude! I totally possessed my dad.
And so Ted asks Bill to kind of back him up, and Bill possesses the sergeant that's next to him, and they get a little distracted because there's like donuts, and they haven't eaten since they were dead. But they realize that these people aren't going to listen to them, so they leave. They unpossess the sergeant and Ted's dad. I completely messed up the order, but a little bit before this, they go back to their apartment, and the evil Bill and Ted are pretty much trying to ruin their relationship with the princesses by just being weird. And so they do that, and then the princesses actually decide they don't want to be proposed anymore. So they're like, you know what, fine, we'll quit being in the Battle of the Bands, and we'll leave these. And they throw the rings off, and then they leave. And then we get back to the police station and all that happening. And then afterwards, we go to, I believe, Ted's house, I think. And Missy, Ted's stepmom, and a bunch of random people are having a seance, some kind of spiritual thingy. And it never works, but Bill and Ted are like, we're ghosts, it'll work this time. So they go in during the seance and start trying to tell everyone that Bill and Ted, they've died and they got to save the princesses. But Missy interprets that as them being evil spirits. So she opens a book she has on the table for getting rid of evil spirits, and her and all the people say a command thingy that ends up sending Bill and Ted to hell. So they fall to hell. But Bill and Ted are like, well, dang, man, we got lied to by our album covers and stuff like that, of course. Same Bill and Ted stuff, of course. And so they're like, they see the devil, and they're like, well, dude, how do we get his attention so we can get out of here? And so they do the sign of the devil, or the rock symbol, pretty much, with their hands, and they scream for the devil to get the devil's attention. And it works. So he ends up pulling them into, because they're on these floating rocks with chains attached to the end of them. And he pulls them in, and they climb up this dragon gargoyle mouth thingy that breathes fire. And they walk up, and they're like, hey man, can we get out of here? We're not really meant to be here. And Satan's just like, sure, you can go. And they're like, oh, well, alright. and then he pulls a lever, and they fall through a trapdoor, and now they're in this whole like system of hallways that like fan out all throughout the place. So they're like, well, let's maybe try one of these doors or something. So they go around, they try opening a door, and they walk in, and again, like with this movie, I feel like the sets are really like they're good, you know, like it just has like, at least in Hell, it has like a certain color theme going with it, which I think is pretty cool. So a lot of stuff there is green, and they're just looking around. They're like, where the heck are we? And they hear some like freaking big old footsteps coming up towards them, and they realize it's Colonel Oates, and he kind of scares them pretty much.
Is that clear? Yes, sir. Dude. What? Yes, dude, sir. What?
Tries to make them do infinite push-ups, and so they're like, dude, I can't do this forever, you know, this isn't gonna work. So they just get up and run. They just get out of there, and they get out the door, and then they're like, dude, I think we're in our own personal hell, you know. And so they're like, I don't know why, but they just decide to split up, so maybe it can't get them as bad. So they split up. They go to each their own little door thing, and when they go in, they enter these rooms, and they're like little kids, and it's like they end up experiencing their fears that they've had since they were little, because I'm guessing it's probably like the only fears they really have in general, because I mean, honestly, they don't really got to care in the world for stuff, which is cool. So we see Bill's fear is kissing his grandma, and Ted's fear is the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny, yeah. I mean, he looks kind of creepy, I guess, in the movie. So they kind of go through they like almost get attacked by their fears. They're like, what the heck, this is not cool. So they leave, they run out the doors again, and they're like, dude, we got to get out of here. And then the devil's like, you know, telling them to choose where their eternal punishment or whatever, not even punishment, just eternal fate will be. And so they kind of threaten him, and he like just launches them across the hallway. And then Satan decides to let all their fears out. So Colonel Oates, Bill's grandma, Easter Bunny all start chasing after Bill and Ted. And so they're running through the hallways, and like the area is like small, so they have to kind of crouch down slightly. So they're running through there. They're like, dude, we are screwed, because they're stuck from all like different directions. And so they decide, you know what, we got to face the Reaper. So the Grim Reaper shows up. All the stuff's gone. They're just in like a black void, and they're like, you know, they're ready to face him in whatever the challenge is. And so, I kid you not, Bill and Ted play the Reaper in a game of Battleship. They play Battleship, and they end up winning, of course, which is good. And so they won. They beat Death. And then Death decides to say best 2 out of 3. And Bill and Ted are like, dude, are you serious? And, you know, he's serious. So they play him in another game. I think the next game they play him in is Clue. Again, he ends up losing. And then he goes he's like, again. And they play, I think it was like some kind of football game. It's like one of the ones where it's like the platform, and it's almost like an air hockey kind of floor in a way, where like, you know how like the puck like slides around. I think it's kind of something like that. I don't know. I've only seen it like once in my life, like in real life. I don't really see stuff like that today. It's some kind of like football game or whatever, but it like glitches out or messes up, and Grim Reaper's mad because he's lost like 3 games in a row now, and then he's like best of 7 or something like that. And so then they play Twister, and I mean, of course, the Grim Reaper loses again, and he finally decides, you know what, I'll take you guys back. And so Bill and Ted are, you know, they're happy, you know, they get to go back to being alive, But then they realize, you know, once they go back, how are they supposed to fight those evil robot versions of them? And Ted gets the idea, you know, how about we make good robot versions of us? And, you know, they're like, Bill's like, it's a good idea. So they ask the Grim Reaper if there's any way he can help. And because they beat him, he's at their command. So they head to heaven. So now they're in heaven, and they get a little pamphlet thingy from like these people that are like welcoming them at the entrance, and it says like only the like purest and true of heart can enter. And so Bill and Ted are like, oh well, dude, we're kind of screwed in a way, because you know they're not like angels or anything there, they're just like there, you know. And so they go off screen, and these 3 people show up, and I kid you not, they call the 3 people over, and they knock them out pretty much. And then they like come on with the people's clothes, and so they're like, you know what, dude, we gotta hurry up before we ruin it for everyone else. And so they go into heaven, they get in a line to speak to God, and they're asked what the meaning of life is, and they quote the lyrics from "Every Rose Has Its Thorn" by Poison. And I feel like they're not wrong in a way. But anyways, they say the quote. The guy opens the door for him, and they go and walk up and get ready to talk to God.
We are not the 3 wise people that you might have thought we were. No. We mugged 3 people and took their clothes. Sorry.
And I'd say it's just a pretty funny, like, I feel like this whole movie is it's a pretty funny movie. It's really, it sounds really bad when I'm explaining it, like, word for word. Like, even Excellent Adventure, it doesn't sound nearly as good when I have to sit here. I don't have to, but when I choose to sit here and explain it, it doesn't sound that great. But I promise it's good. You just gotta watch it. But so yeah, they go to talk to God, and it's just a pretty funny scene. I remember I did like a 2-person scene of that scene in this theater class I had, because it was like I didn't really know what else to do, but it was fun. You know, it was just funny. I guess I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, so they talk to God.
Not to mention your other great planets. Mars, Jupiter, Uranus.
You know, they ask for help, and he gives them this like weird glowing circle translucent thing, and it ends up being like a radar almost to like track where their help is, because God tells them, he says station. And so they're going through, while they're looking for station, Evil Bill and Ted are at their apartment, and they're just trashing the whole place. And then when they're done trashing it, they decide to go and get the princesses for the Battle of Bands, even though they said they quit. And so while they're doing that, we go back to Bill and Ted in heaven. They find Station, or Stations. It's 2 little Martian guys, and they're playing charades. And after the game of charades, Bill and Ted are like, you know, we've heard you guys are like the smartest people, smartest things in the galaxy, you know. And they asked if Stations wanted to help them, and they agreed. So they're like, well, sweet. So they leave heaven, and they come back from being dead. Like, they wake up, and the Grim Reaper's there, Stations are there, and so, and the Stations are, they're pretty much like Groot in a way, where they can only say station. So they can't like speak anything, and they're Martians, so they can't speak English. So they just say station, and that's why they're called that pretty much. Back to the being alive, their van is still there because the evil thems left it because they thought it was junk. So they leave the van. Bill and Ted get in the van. They drive to a store and start shopping with the Grim Reaper and Stations to get materials for them to make the good robot versions of them. And while they're doing that, evil Bill and Ted are like driving around trying to like run over cats and stuff. And they find Ted's house where the princesses are, and I kid you not, they do like one of the like just interesting entrances ever. They just like slam on a curb and fly through the windshield, through the window, and like crash into the house. Not in the car, but like they from just them. They just fly through the window, which is kind of funny, I'd say. But so they do that, and then they use evil breath to knock out Missy, who tries to stop them from kind of taking the princesses hostage. And they use their, well, no, they don't even use their evil breath on the princesses. They like open their like chests and show that they have all like the robot pieces inside of them, and then the princesses pass out. They're getting ready to take the princesses to the Battle of the Bands while they're unconscious, and Bill and Ted call the evil robots, and they're like, you know what, we're back from the dead, you know, and we're gonna beat you guys with our robots or something like that. And so evil Bill and Ted aren't scared at all. They're just like, oh yeah, well, good luck, we get to kill you guys again. And so they leave, they head to the Battle of the Bands, and Bill and Ted, Station, and the Grim Reaper, they leave the store with all the stuff they have, and they're packing it into the van. And they're like, you know, I hope Stations know what they're doing. And the two Stations, they like run to like the other side of the parking lot. And I kid you not, they run up, they fly at each other, and then they morph into like a giant glob that is like has steam coming off of it. And then they grow into a huge, big station that is kind of like Groot. He just says Station still, but it's the two stations combined, and they're giant. And so that happens, and then they all hop in the van and drive towards the Battle of the Bands. And there's a cool little montage of Station just like freaking messing with all the stuff they got and like starting to make the robots. And something that I have like seen is that they were gonna have a deleted scene where the evil robots, before they head to the Battle of the Bands, they have these fear canisters, and it like physically interprets Bill and Ted's fears. Like, so it would have been the Easter Bunny and Bill's grandma and Colonel Oates. And they'd have that, like, while Bill and Ted are on the way to the Battle of the Bands, they get stopped by their fears, and then they're like more insane almost. Like Colonel Oates has like an RPG or something like that. Bill's grandma's like hair is like sticking up or something like that, and the Easter Bunny is like 7 feet tall or something. Like, it's huge. And it's got big old claws and teeth. But they ended up taking it out for like time reasons, and because like I think the test audience said it'd probably be too scary for kids or something, because they wanted it to be like they didn't want it to be PG-13, because originally they were gonna name the movie Bill and Ted Go to Hell, but they'd have to have it be PG-13 for that or something like that. So there's a little fun fact there, I guess. You know, there were a decent amount of deleted scenes that got taken out or weren't even put into the movie. Station gets the robots built.
How's it going, good robot Bill?
How's it good?
And they make it to the Battle of the Bands. They reveal the robots.
Ready, Bill? Ready, Ted? Let's go get him.
They get ready. They enter the behind the stage, and the evil Bill and Ted are getting ready to perform and all that, and they're just being rude to the audience, I guess. And then normal Bill and Ted show up. They got their robots, and this is the part where it feels kind of anticlimactic, because the robots I think they just bust through the wall, and then they run up to the evil robots, and evil Bill and Ted are just kudos to you guys. and then the good robots just like punch their heads off and then blow them up. Like they just instantly are gone. And because again, another deleted scene thing or whatever. Originally, I think it was supposed to be where like Bill and Ted try fighting them, and then they die again. But because they won so many times against a Grim Reaper, they get an extra life almost. So they come back to life, and while the evil robots think that they're dead, they like take their heads off, and like there's like a self-destruct button on their heads or something like that, and then they blow them up like that. And then the princesses are tied up on like the rafters or whatever, and like the ropes are getting ready to break. And in that ending, it was supposed to be where like the robots, that's when they come in through the wall and then they catch the princesses. But instead, in the way it goes, how it is now, they just like lower the ropes and save the princesses, and you know, it's all happy, you know, it's a little happy ending. And then the phone booth comes in from the sky, or just comes in from like the ceiling pretty much, I don't know. And there's Nomolos, and he's upset because his robots just like blew up. And so he takes a little like remote wand looking thingy, and he like zaps all the cameras, and that's how the broadcast becomes like worldwide, because it like affects every camera in the world. And so every TV station and all that is the Battle of the Bands. And Nomolos has like a monologue or something like that about how he doesn't, it's going to be his way. And then Bill and Ted use what they did in the first movie, where they'll have the future versions of them do something to help them out. So like they dropped a sandbag or something to drop like his gun, because Nomolos had a gun from the future. And then they drop a cage, and then Nomolos is like, oh well, I can do that as well, and I got a key, and now I got another gun. And then he goes to shoot them, and then it ends up being like one of those like Joker guns where it shoots the flag out of it or whatever. And then Bill and Ted kind of tell him that like, you know, we're the ones that win, so we set up the fake thing, and like they set up the key, they set up the fake gun because they won, so they knew it was going to happen pretty much, which is kind of cool, I guess. The Grim Reaper Melvin's Nomolos, and then Ted's dad arrests Nomolos. And then Bill and Ted, you know, they're on the stage, you know, the stage is all theirs. And then the girl that let them audition is like, oh, I got a secret to tell you. And then we find out that it actually was Rufus disguised as her, and he didn't just die getting lost in the circuits of time. He got there early, and he let them audition, because he was like, you know, was anyone else going to let you guys audition, because you guys are kind of trash. So they're like, oh, that makes sense. And then he like explains who Nomolos was. It was like some kind of sit-up champion of some year in the future, and then like he's just like, okay, well, the stage is yours. And so they're like, well, all right. And then Bill and Ted remember that they still don't really know how to play. And they remember, well, dude, we got the phone booth right there. So they go, and immediately the phone booth's back, and they had a 4-month like practice of guitar and honeymoon. And we find out that Bill and Ted and the princesses have kids now. So Ted has a boy named Little Bill, and then Bill has a boy named Little Ted. So they like introduce us to them. They're ready to play now, so they have a little speech about how, you know, the best time to be is in the present and all that. And then they just start to play. And I forgot they have a Kiss song in the soundtrack as well. So they play that song, and, you know, everyone around the world watching TV is going crazy because it's all insane and all that. And then that's the end of Bogue's journey. And so, you know, that's, I think originally that was meant to be the kind of like song or message that like realigns the planets and all that, because like they have like a whole thing at the end, and like there's like a newspaper saying that they went to Mars to perform, which is kind of crazy. But I think they probably changed that, of course, for like Face the Music to make it work and all that. So yeah, that was Bogus Journey. It's pretty good. I'd say it's a tie, like between like which one I like more, either Bogus Journey or Excellent Adventure. I feel like to me they're in both in multiple ways. They're good like by themselves, and also like together as a sequel and starting movie. Okay, had a little sip of water, and it's a lot more talking than I thought. Wow. So that was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Like I was saying, you know, I liked it just as good as the first one, and this is the third one, the last out of the three, at least so far. Bill and Ted Face the Music. To me, in my opinion, I wouldn't say it's like the best out of the three, but I mean it's still good, of course. Usually, most of the time with movies, when they get to the third one, it's usually not always gonna, like, people usually aren't gonna like it, and I wouldn't say I dislike it. I just say, like, to me, the first two are more iconic, just because it has almost that kind of nostalgia factor to it. Because to me, it's just, it feels weird seeing it in like a modern style, like with the effects and all that. But I mean, you know, it's not like they can just like put a filter on it and be like, oh yeah, look, it looks like it's from the 80s and 90s, you know. So you can't really blame them for that. That's just kind of me and my personal taste. I don't know if there's as much air guitar in Face the Music compared to Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. You know, Bogus Journey, they added a lot more air guitar. I know they, like, for like 2 or 3 times they used like the same air guitar sound effect in Excellent Adventure, probably just 2 times. But you know, Bogus Journey, I feel like it just had more like, at least air guitar I could remember the sound of. Face the Music had like, it wasn't like the same thing, of course, but like, you know, different sounding. I don't know if Steve Vai still did the sound effects for it or not. But even then, I'm not saying they sounded terrible. It just felt like they didn't really have as many air guitar moments. And again, that's not even a bad thing. That's just like me whining, of course. So some new kind of main characters. So if you remembered by the end of Bogus Journey, when they had Bill and Ted had Little Bill and Little Ted, it turns out that they were actually daughters. Which, I mean, I guess could have like still made sense and like connected today, like in Face the Music. Because I don't think they even said in Bogus Journey that they were like boys or anything. It's just like Little Ted and Little Bill kind of seem like dude names. But even then, that could have literally just, like, in Face the Music, they even bring it up, like, oh, remember when they could just call you Little Bill and Little Ted, you know? So it's like, it doesn't even, it's not like it doesn't work, like it still works. And so yeah. But yeah, so they have daughters, and so there's Ted's daughter Billy, who, excuse me if I butcher names, I'm not entirely the best at saying names sometimes, but Billy, played by Bridget Lundy Payne, I think that's how you say their name, I don't know. And then Bill's daughter Thea, played by Samara Weaving. And then you have Rufus's daughter, Kelly, played by Kristen Shale. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. Who also, if some people know, voices like Mabel from Gravity Falls, which I thought that's what I recognized her from. So I guess I'll just get into the brief summary, or not really brief, just the freaking summary of the whole movie. So it starts, you know, kind of starts almost on a sad tone, you know. It's Billy and Thea kind of talking to the audience in a way, but like kind of almost going over the memories of like how we've seen almost the journey we've seen Bill and Ted on throughout like their life or whatever. And it was just like, dang, man, like they got this freaking, it's kind of sad, man. It's like a trip down memory lane, but I wasn't even born then, you know, so I don't even know how that works. And so then there's that, like, it's pretty much a recap of like what all happened, and then it's like, well, it turns out that Bill and Ted still had to make that song. They still hadn't made that song that just completes the universe. And they were, for like the last 25 years or so, they've just been trying over and over and over, but nothing's working. And Wild Stallions, like, their band is like disbanded, because it turns out in Bogus Journey, I forgot to mention this. Jeez, I really should have like written down more important things that happened in the story. In Bogus Journey, the Grim Reaper actually joins Wild Stallions as a bass player at the end of the movie, so that's pretty cool. And so eventually in Face of Music, at the very beginning, like, it says all these magazine stuff like Wild Stallions disbanded, and how Death went to go and make his own music and stuff like that. And they kind of just going downhill, trying to get that song. And then it cuts to today, and this movie came out in like 2020, so kind of around COVID time, pretty much. Yeah. So 2020 is when the movie takes place. Bill and Ted are at a wedding, and you won't believe who the wedding's for. Ted's stepmom, Missy, who's now his, what would that be, like sister-in-law or something? Because now she's marrying his little brother, Deacon. That happens, and so that's who they're at the wedding for. And Ted's dad is there, so that's kind of, it makes it kind of awkward again. But you know, he's still hanging out. And so they try making another song to kind of aim to make the song that'll align the planets and all that Rufus told him about. And you know, it is a catastrophe of instruments, but it works. Actually, it's actually a pretty decent song, I won't lie, in a way. And so their dad, Ted's dad, is just kind of like tired of it, so he just unplugs all the sound stuff. And then we cut to the end of the wedding, and you know, they're packing up their stuff in another van. It's not the same van from Bogus Journey, unfortunately. That would have been cool, but they're packing their stuff to head home, and Ted's dad is just complaining to him. He's like, when are you guys gonna actually get a job, And he asks the princesses, who are played by different actresses. He asks them, when are, like, how does it feel being the only people that actually have a job in your house? And then he's the one who brings up the little Bill, little Ted, and how they're like little versions of Bill and Ted, and how that's like not good or whatever. And Thea and Billy pretty much are like, they just kind of act like Bill and Ted, because I mean, that's the whole thing pretty much. Like, they're their kids, so like they're kind of supposed to act like them, I guess. So they got the kind of like surfer dude sounding accent. I don't even know if it's an accent. I think it's just a way of speaking. But they have that, and then it turns out that Bill and Ted, their wives, the princesses, have signed them up for a couple's like marriage counseling or something like that, or just couple counseling. And they end up meeting up at the same time. I'm pretty sure Bill and Ted just planned that. And so their couple counselor, they start having a talk, and they have a whole thing where it's like they can't really say that they specifically love the princess. It's like, I and Bill love both of you, or something like that. It's like a we love you, not an I love you kind of thing. The princesses kind of don't really like that. They kind of think it's weird, and so is the couple counselor. And so Bill and Ted are kind of like, well, dang, man, because they leave early, so the couple counselor can just talk to the princesses in private. And they're like, well, dang, I didn't know they like thought about us like that, and they brought them into this world and this future, and yet they're just doing the same thing, struggling to make the song. And then Ted kind of has a moment where he just talks to Bill in their garage, and it's like, dude, I'm tired of trying to make this song. We've been trying to do this for like the last 25 years, and nothing's come out of it. And so they're sitting there and they're debating selling their instruments to get some money. And right when they're doing that, Kelly, Rufus's daughter, appears in like a new an improved time machine. It kind of looks like an egg. It's like a white, like, sphere shape that like spins around, and it just kind of looks like an egg. And so Bill and Ted see that, and they're like, well, what the heck? Who's that, you know? And Kelly introduces herself. She's like, you guys need to come to the future. We have some people want to talk to you. And they're like, well, all right. So they go to the future, and their daughters see that from the window. And they're like, dude, our dad's got to be in trouble or something. You know, we got to help them. And so Bill and Ted go to the future, and they kind of just like walk towards this like main area where the great ones are, just the people in charge, pretty much. And since George Carlin, he couldn't return because he died in like 2008, so, you know, rest in peace to him. But they have a nice Easter egg to him where it's like a little hologram of like him kind of like showing up from like the start of Excellent Adventure when he first landed at the Circle K, and it's almost like a museum, kind of like they have the first phone booth pretty much, and it's like a museum kind of thing that he talks about, which is kind of cool. And then Bill and Ted meet the people in charge, and, you know, they say their good old catchphrase, you know, be excellent to each other, party on, dudes. And the people there, they don't care. They're like, yeah, so you guys got to make this song in like 72 hours or something like that. You guys got to make this song in like a certain amount of time, or else the whole world as we know it is going to fall apart. Because it turns out, since they haven't made this song for the whole universe to hear, the like time has been like messing up on itself, and like historical figures have been sent to like certain places that they aren't. Like the time stuff is all getting mixed up. Like Jesus is like sent to a Kid Cudi concert, and Kid Cudi is sent to like the final meal or something, if that's what it was. And yeah, Kid Cudi is in the movie. He is somewhat of an important side character, actually. They made him like super smart. I don't know if he's like that in real life. Someone would have to let me know, or I can just look it up. I don't know. But yeah, he's smart in the movie, so he knows a lot of stuff. And he also made shoes for the like movie, pretty much, like a little crossover thing, which I actually didn't know they were like a crossover he had until I like saw him wearing them in the movie, and I was like, oh snap, I thought like these were from like this, these were like a thing from Bogus Journey, because I looked up the shoe, and these are literally the shoes that Ted wears in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. It's just different colors of the laces, and like I think the Adidas stripes are green or something like that, and they don't have like the Wild Stallions thing on the back. So these are the Kid Cudi ones that cross. I mean, of course I have them because, you know, I'm a Bill and Ted fan. So yeah, the time stuff is all getting messed up because that song hasn't been made yet to create harmony. And so they tell Bill and Ted, like, you have this amount of time, good luck, and they just leave him with a bunch of instruments. And Bill and Ted are like, dude, we spent 25 years trying to get this. What makes them think we can just do it now, you know? So they're like, well, what if we go into the future where they'll already have the song? And this kind of confused me a tiny bit. I might just be slow, but this just made me think, like, well, how are they supposed to go to the future if they have the song, if they don't have the song? Because, like, isn't time supposed to, like, collapse all over the place? So, like, how would that work? Because, like, if you go to the future, that'd be after the time collapses, right? I don't know. I really don't know. So I just don't really ask the question there. But they go to the future and meet a version of themselves from like 2 years into the future or something like that. And they're at this like place playing songs for like a free taco night at some restaurant place thingy. So they go and they confront their future selves. They're like, what's going on? What, do you guys not have the song? They're like, no, we don't have the song. And they start beefing with each other. And then future Ted brings up that their wives left them. And they were like, what? And he tells them that they, after the couple counseling, their wives from the future had them go and look at different, like, alternate timelines, pretty much, with Bill and Ted to see which one they'd like the most, and they don't end up finding one that they like. And so they leave them. And then Ted becomes an alcoholic. And so they kind of get mad at each other, then they walk away, and then they go to look for the next group of them from the future. And while they do that, the people from the future, the great ones, find out that they took the phone booth, and Rufus's wife, who's like the main person in charge, is like, she's pretty mad because she's like, well, I gave them a chance and they ran. And so she sends a murderous robot from the future back in time to look for Bill and Ted to annihilate them. And so Kelly, literally, she tells Kelly that, and Kelly's like, what the heck, you can't do that, it's Bill and Ted. And so she goes back to 2020, to the present day, and she's trying to look for Bill and Ted to warn them that her mom sent a murderous robot after them. And that is when Billy and Thea go out and ask if they can, like, help their fathers by, like, using a time machine. And they decide, Kelly decides to let them use it, and they're like super, like, they have like really good like music like knowledge of like anything pretty much. So they decide, you know what, we're gonna go back in time and we're gonna get famous musicians and stuff like that to make a band for our dads to make the song. And so they go back in time and they find Jimi Hendrix, and they're like, Jimi Hendrix, we'd love to have you in our band. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure you guys are from the future. And he just like leaves them. So they're like, well, we need someone that Jimi Hendrix knows or like looks up to maybe win Jimi Hendrix over. So then they get Louis Armstrong, the like kind of jazz player dude. They got him. He played the trumpet a little bit, and Jimi Hendrix was like, oh shoot, these guys mean like business. So he joins the girls and Louis Armstrong on being in the band. And then Bill and Ted they go even further into the future, and they meet, they're like, well, they meet the future versions of them, and they live in a mansion. They're like, dude, we had to have made the song, dude. Look at where we live. So they go in and they say hi to their future selves, and they've got British accents because it turns out their wives, the princesses Joanna and Elizabeth, came back to them after they made the song, and they decided to spend quality couple time by learning English, or like getting an English accent pretty much to help with the whole medieval England thing. And so then they Bill and Ted are like, so you guys got the song? And they're like, yeah. And so they play the song for them, and they're just like, man, that was beautiful. And so they get ready to leave after taking the song with them. They're like, here. They hand it to them on like a disc or something. They're like, here you go. Here's the song. Play it. And there you go. And so they get ready to leave, and they open the door, and they're met by Dave Grohl. And this is, of course, before the whole controversy drama thing started with him. Of course, you know, that people have been talking about recently. But he shows up, and it's kind of funny because Bill and Ted, they're like, Dave Grohl! And he's like, who are you guys? And it turns out they're at Dave Grohl's house. And so they go back to confront the future versions of them while Dave Grohl starts to call the cops. And they're like, dude, what are you guys doing? And because they come back, and it turns out that they were lying. They weren't actually as well put together as they thought they were. The future Bill and Ted were actually like still bad, you know, like they take off these like things, and they still have like they got big old bellies, and Ted's still drinking, and So they confront them. Bill and Ted confront the future versions of them. They're like, why would you guys lie? Why would you guys do that? And they're like, well, we just put the song, use the song. We need to get our lives back together. And so they're like, no, we're not going to do it. And future Bill pulls a gun on present Bill and Ted. And so they're like, oh crap. So they run, and future Bill and Ted kind of cut them off, and they're like, dude, they're us. They've been us. They know what we're going to do. So they decide to run into a random room and put buckets on their head and just like randomly like walk around to like not let the other future versions of them know what they're about to do. So they fall out of a balcony, and Ted's dad is there, and so is Deacon, because Deacon also works for the police department now. And Ted's dad is like, man, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to draw the line here. And so they're trying, Bill and Ted take the buckets off. They're trying to run to the phone booth. And then the murderous robot appears. And they're like, oh, dude, what is that? And so they quickly dial a number to go further into the future. And as soon as the phone booth drops, the robot shoots a like laser beam. And he ends up getting Ted's dad and his like whole like SWAT truck, pretty much. And so then Ted's dad is sent to hell. And we see the Grim Reaper. Grim Reaper's back. That's pretty cool. And so then it cuts back to Billy and Thea, and they are looking for more musicians. They find Mozart, so they get him. Jimi Hendrix has a little like a battle with him, like music battle. It's pretty cool. And he joins them, and then they go and find Ling Loon, who I think is like some kind of flute player, I'm pretty sure. And then who else do they get? They get a drummer as well. It's like a cave woman drummer, and I forget her name because they like don't say it to where I can remember it at least. It's like something with a G. I can't remember if it's like Grom or something like that. But yeah, they get a cave woman for the drummer. And then they head back, and Kid Cudi shows up, and he's like talking about some kind of like time warp continuum theory thing or something like that. And they're like, yeah, sure, that's, yeah. And so they get ready to go into the garage to get ready to start making music for their dads. And the murderous robot's there, and he just immediately zaps everyone there, including Kelly. And now they're all sent to hell. And so the robot's kind of, feels kind of bad because he's killed the wrong people. So after they all get, like Billy and Thea and all of them get sent to hell, Bill and Ted go into the future further as well. And then they're at a prison, and they find themselves there, and they're all freaking ripped and buff. And it was because they ended up getting turned into the police because they left them there. And then so they were just in prison. They're like, you know what, we're gonna replace you guys. We're gonna get our wives back. We're gonna get our lives back together without you guys. We're gonna leave you guys here in prison. And then the robot appears, and they're like, oh shoot, what happens if he laser beams them? Then we get affected, or something like that. And then so they start beating up the robot, and then they're like playing this like song they made or whatever. It's like this death stuff and all that. And then the robot's like, oh, that's not music. So then they beat him up even more. And then Bill and Ted take that time to run away and use the phone booth again. And so they go even further into the future. And then that's where they meet their old selves. And they are further in the future. They're at like some kind of like home for old people or something like that. And so they go in, and it's them, and they're old dudes, and they're like wise and kind and all that. They're like, I'm sorry for all the things we did, I'm sorry for not being there for you, stuff like that's pretty sweet, you know. And then they're like, we got the song, by the way. So they hand it to them on like a USB, and the song is called Face the Music, of course. And so they get the song, and they're like, thank you guys. And then they head back, or they try to head back to the phone booth, and it's gone because I don't even remember how it disappeared. It just kind of vanished, I think. I think the robot got rid of it because he was there. He appeared, and he got ready to zap them. And they were like, wait, we have the song. And he was like, you have the song? And they're like, yeah. And the robot, dude, he feels terrible, bro. He's like, so I may have, like, murdered your family and loved ones. And Bill and Ted are like, dude, what? And then he's like, I may have sent them to hell. And so they're like, well, dude, you gotta send us. And he's like, well, no, you guys got the song. So they break. Bill snaps the USB. And so now it's where they don't have the song. So then the robot is, he just feels terrible. And he's like, no, I can't do it. And so he literally goes to laser beam himself. And then Bill and Ted, like, grab onto him so he gets all three of them. So now they're going to hell, too. So now that everyone is in hell, Bill and Ted they're getting ready to go look for their daughters and everyone else that got zapped. And then the robot just, like, suddenly gains consciousness. He's like, dude, I remember my name is Dennis Caleb McCoy, or something like that. And so the rest of the movie, the robot goes telling everyone his name and, like, repeating it, which is kind of funny, I guess. But so they're like looking around hell, and they find some demons, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, they were pretty nice people, you know, they went over there. And so they end up finding Billy and Thea and all the musicians they were with, and even Ted's dad. And Ted's dad was finally like, you know what, son, I'm sorry for everything. You know, I finally believe you now. I finally believe you went back in time and you went to heaven and hell and all that. You know, I finally believe you. So they have a little moment there, I guess. And then they're like, well, how are we going to get out of here? And they're like, the Grim Reaper. So they go and find Death, and he's playing, like, hopscotch by himself and like tetherball. And then Bill and Ted go up to talk to him, and Death doesn't want any part in it. You know, he doesn't want to talk to them at all because they I think they put, like, I can't remember if it was like a restraining order or something on Death, but he was mad at him for all the Wild Stallion stuff. You know, he was like, I was Wild Stallions, you know. And they were like, well, dude, we couldn't keep you in the band when you want to do 40-minute bass solos. And so that's kind of funny. And then they talk to him, and he just shuts them outside of their house. And then they go in, they try talking to him, he's just like, no, I don't want to hear it. And so then Billy and Thea go in, and they talk to Death and convince him to, like, talk to their dads. And their dads are like, you know what, Death, we want to get the band back together. You know, do you want to join Wild Stallions again? And, you know, Death is like, yeah. And so Death joins the band. He's back in Wild Stallions. And then he's like, you know what? Let's get out of here. So they all get in Ted's dad's, like, SWAT truck that came with him to hell. And they get, like, flung up all the way, like, out of hell. And then they are in, like, the specific spot that they had to be in, because they had to be at this, like, place called, like, MP something like that. I can't exactly remember, but they had to be at this exact location. And they got out the SWAT truck, and they were like, oh, look, we're there. And it was, like, on this, like, highway pretty much. And, you know, time is all flipping out, people are going crazy, and they're like, dude, we gotta get these songs, like, we gotta get this song, you know. And the daughters are like, so we got the band, you know, we just need to hear the song. And then Bill and Ted are like, we're sorry, but we got rid of the song. And then they took the pieces of the USB, because I guess Bill kept it, and they put it together, and they're like, B and T. It's not Bill and Ted, it's Billy and Thea. And it turns out that they are the ones that are, like, supposed to help with the whole like realigning the planets with the song and stuff. So it's kind of like both of them in a way, because it's Bill and Ted for Wild Stallions and like that, but it's Billy and Thea as well for like helping make the song, I guess. And so they get a little stage thing, they get all the musicians' instruments, and they start kind of like conducting almost in a way, like kind of telling the people what to play and all that. And so they start getting some music going, and then Bill and Ted are like, well, dude, Rufus said it has to be like, we need everyone in like the universe to hear it or something like that. So they go with their wives in the phone booth, and they're like, well, how are we supposed to do this? And they press like the infinity button, and while they're like, instead of going down, this time the phone booth goes up. And so while that's happening, there's another little romantic moment, I guess, where, you know, Bill and Ted finally say that they actually like separately love their wives and all that. And then like they go up into like the sky, and like the phone booths like split into like a infinite amount of people, like phone booths. And so Bill and Ted are all going around like the infinite versions of themselves. They're all going out, giving instruments to everyone so people can play the song and hear it. And then they get back, they get some guitars, and then it's time for the guitar solo. And they do a little dual guitar solo, which is pretty sweet. It sounds pretty good. And so they do that, and then boom, they did what was said all in the beginning of Excellent Adventure. You know, they played the song, planets aligned, harmony, stuff like that, and the movie ends. Like I said, not like the most favorite out of all of them. I think it's a pretty good ending, at least. I think they could have ended it a Bogus Journey, but I'm still pretty glad that they at least made Face of Music. You know, it's good to see Bill and Ted again, in somewhat of a more like recent style, I guess. I'd say it's definitely more of a family movie, to like kind of sit down and watch in like the living room with your family, but that doesn't make it bad or terrible. So yeah, that is all the Bill and Ted movies. I like, my throat actually hurts, which is not really good. I guess I just haven't talked this much before, but you know, I hope you guys maybe either learned something, or, you know, just agreed to something I said, you know, if you've already seen all the movies. But I'm hoping you did, and I'm hoping you liked it. It's, again, Hector's idea, not mine. I just wanted something to talk about and almost, not really analyze, but just kind of, I don't know, just talk about, you know, and just kind of reason why I really like these movies, and kind of what I see in them, and just hope that more people, I guess, can learn to maybe watch them or like them. You know, I've only known like 3 people in person, I think, that have like actually heard of the movies, and like I don't know, like I feel like compared to stuff like Back to the Future, you know, like Bill and Ted's kind of unheard of in a way. You know, it's kind of a late 80s kind of start, but I still feel like they're iconic, and they have their own uniqueness to them, and people should just give them a shot. You know, like if you can, just watch the movies. I absolutely butchered explaining the whole story of all these movies. It's not good, but you know, I'm just hoping I have interested some of you guys into watching the movies, or, you know, interested some of you guys to I don't know, just start thinking about Bill and Ted. I don't know. Don't entirely know what my main goal was. Just kind of talk about this to either get attention from people who like these movies, or people who don't want to watch them or have wanted to watch them. And again, like I've said like 100 times by now, I did not do these movies justice by sitting here and explaining them. So watching it is like, I hope I didn't just ruin the movies by like talking about them. they really are, in my opinion, like really, really good. Like, I'd say they're like, if you just want a movie to watch, just kind of chill and maybe laugh a little bit, like, I'd say these are pretty good. But yeah, that is mostly it for me and for this video. So I hope you guys liked it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Also, if there were things that I didn't talk about, such as like behind the scenes stuff or like stories behind the movies, I'll most likely know most of it. I just didn't bring it up because I didn't want the video to be extra long, and I didn't want to be boring trying to explain it. So yeah, just for the people that are fans of these movies and have like, oh, did you know this and this? Most of it I'd say I know. At least like deleted scene wise, kind of like backstory of how Bill and Ted started in the first place, stuff like that. But yeah. So, again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a good day or night.